God is good, and with each day that passes brings us a day closer to the launch of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. This is the Napalm channel, and if you are new here, please consider subscribing, especially if you're interested in Pantheon-related content on our march to launch. Today, guys, I want to talk a little bit about the newest update we got, the biggest update we've ever had on Pantheon Rise of the Fallen that just came out yesterday as of time of recording on February 18th, 2020, in which they showed us Faerthale for the first time. Now, if you've been following Pantheon for any length of time, you will know that we went through a dry spell, specifically most of it in 2019, where we heard basically little to no information. And this was because they were crunching down and making this zone you're seeing now, which is Faerthale. It's not just one zone, it's a cluster of zones. But basically what they said is once they got the resources and everything down, that this would kind of be a standard for the rest of the zones. So basically we can look at this zone and kind of expect this amount of quality from the other zones. And this zone took longer because it was completely handcrafted. Now they're using a lot of tools and a lot of resources available with Unity 3D in order to make future zones faster to create, basically using a lot of the tools they already built while doing Faerthale. So Faerthale was the biggest chunk of the actual world building that they needed in that respect. So it's really great news that it's done and they're showing it off. Just because they have the zone done doesn't mean the zone is actually ready. I'm sure there's a lot of things they would like to do before they actually say that this demo is complete. I could be wrong, but pretty sure based on their language in this video that that's the case. Now, specifically today, I want to run through a couple of clips that I found very interesting during this stream and let you hear, and we can discuss and break it down and think about what it may mean. A lot of information to digest here. It's going to take many videos to do it, but let's get started right now.
I think it's also important at this point to say too that one of our goals alongside making the game beautiful is also making sure that it runs well. I think people who are familiar with MMORPGs know that at the end of the day, it's not just how good it looks, but it's just as important, if not more so, that it plays well, that it runs well, that it's optimized and performant. So we go through lots of effort, and we have some pretty brilliant people on the team who have all of us working to achieve what we want to achieve visually while making sure the game runs well.
So I talked about this a little bit on the Pantheon Plus show last night, which is basically, I thought this was really key right here, where Joppa points out that it's just as important that the game runs well as it looks good. Because a lot of the times, a company will go after these super awesome, realistic, or high demanding graphics that look so freaking good, and the trailer is awesome, and no matter the spec of your PC, you try to run it and it runs like a hot garbage mess. And that's a problem. Some of the more successful MMOs launched with smooth gameplay. Technically, some have been able to recover from that, but it's rare. So people will put up with a little bit when it launches, right? We kind of know by now that launch isn't perfect. Most of us, anyway. We kind of know that, right? We know that there's launch and there's going to be issues, and we kind of judge how good the development team is during this time on how quick they are to respond and get things fixed, because that is amazing when they pull it off, right? But some of the more successful games have launched their games in a way and even designed their graphics in a way, like from the ground up, to run smoothly. Think from these videos, minus a couple of hiccups just from it being a stream, right? You can tell that the game is running very smoothly, and that is key to a successful launch. Now, they're doing a lot of tricks in order for this to happen with these graphics, and that has a lot to do with their tool set that I mentioned earlier. They talk a little bit more about that later on, but basically how they're able to reuse a lot of assets without you realizing that they're reusing assets, kind of thing. And it's brilliant, and honestly, it's something that Final Fantasy XIV Realm Reborn did in order to make the game run smoother. It is paramount to success that developers come up with ways to do this, in my opinion. All right, let's keep moving forward with the next clip.
There is a specific purpose for this quest, for this storyline, but I'll let Chris talk about it.
Yeah, so in keeping with the spirit of our bi-weekly updates, we're giving a snapshot here of what we're working on and kind of the state that it's in. And we've shown lots about the perception system over the years, and increasingly more so more recently. And this is a chance to show off some of the dialogue associated with the perception system specifically. So when we've talked about the non-linear kind of branching storytelling that goes on in the perception system, this quest is meant to be an example of that. And we don't have time to go through the whole thing on this stream, but I would encourage you, Ko, I'm just gonna hand it over to you. I know you like to read these things and really consider it and even read it out loud. So feel free to kind of follow the quest along for a little bit, and then I'll stop us here in a couple minutes.
Yeah, sure. Let me start this over from the beginning, I think. So you can see me. That is unexpected. Who are you? A good question. If you're after my name, I no longer have one. In this world, we are known simply as Old Ones. We once existed in the natural world as you do, though I have trouble remembering that far back. Because how old are you? Old enough to remember the moment when time stopped and the world was split in two. But time hasn't stopped. You're right. Time carries on for you and your world. There are very little changes in mine. I'm the same as I've always remembered myself to be, free to move, but always returning here. I must say, being seen from your side is interesting indeed. My side, are we in different worlds? I'm not sure just yet. I presume you touched this mythical stone? Yeah, I felt it draw to me. I felt it draw me. Beckoned by a sight stone, you say. Interesting indeed. On rare occasions, sight stones have been known to grant an incredible gift, the ability for a mortal creature to see beyond the natural world into another. This explains why I've appeared before you. The veil between our world may cause me to appear as a spirit of some kind. The sight stone did this? Indeed. Knowledge of legendary weapons, armor, and relics of the stone great power or protection is not new to you. Your world is full of such things. But sight stones are not chosen by adventurers like weapons to be wielded or relics to be worn. It is the sight stone itself that chooses. I've seen no magic that can force their power or break them open against their will. The sight stone chooses what? I'm unwilling to say anything more. The time has come for you to look for answers beyond me. I see you still observe time. Time is undeniable, especially when it has stopped. Are there more Old Ones I can speak with? That is difficult for me to say, but I understand why you are asking. I told you to look for answers beyond me, and you are curious how to do that. The sight stone has beckoned you. As a result, knowledge may present itself to you that would otherwise be hidden. You will likely speak with people and creatures alike who would not have acknowledged you before. From now on, you will sense much deeper importance in the most insignificant things. You may even perceive a voice that sounds like your own. It suggests things that you didn't already know. I do not know the extent of what awaits you, however. But please tell me what you know. I'm not sure why this has happened to you. However, I sense a tree folk with great wisdom nearby. I believe they're called Spriggan. It appears she has planted herself in place by setting her roots deep underground. I faintly remember hearing of this tradition of theirs. If I were to encourage you towards the next step, it would be to speak with her. Farewell.
Cool. And you're welcome to run over and kind of get that started since you've already met Nymir. But this is, again, meant to be an example of how the perception system storylines will begin to take you deeper and deeper into the greater story arcs of the world, of your class, of your race. Sometimes the specific zone you're in, sometimes, more universal story arcs. And you get to see a lot more of the branching dialogue with Nymir than you did with the old one. But the idea is the same. So I think over here, have you sparked up a conversation with her again?
I just started. Let me see if I can bring that back up real quick. Welcome, child of Vas Demet. Hail, and who are you? My name is Nehu, and I am known as a Spriggan. I traveled to Oldwood long ago from the Grove of O'Kaim, king of the Spriggan Sanctuary. Are you stuck? Stuck? That is a shallow version of the truth. I rested in this spot over 100 years ago, entering the final season of my life as a Spriggan. Among my people, it takes both age and ability to meld with the soil in such a permanent way. It is an honor, one that I will wear beyond my death. Why is it an honor? The honor lies in the purpose to yield an offspring known as a seedling. While not a true child, as seedlings become drollings and not Spriggan, they are a token of life nonetheless. This bloom I cradle in my hand will one day become such a creature. You may even find a few wandering about Oldwood. Hopefully we will not kill them for experience. Hopefully not too near the falls. They don't always heed their mother's voice. Suppose you can't face them yourself. Not without great harm. Trees are difficult to wound and can take longer to heal than flesh. Not as long as stones, however. I don't mourn the loss of my mobility. My state is a Spriggan's glory. Every day my roots reaching closer to the face in the deep. Every night I sit in an ancient wood and search the world through paths the eye cannot see. Reminds me, the old one said to find you. Is that so? Well, I was told to wait for a mortal from another world. Are you that mortal? Oh. Cool.
So we'll stop it there. But so I know that the question is going to come up, like how nonlinear is this, and what kind of options do we actually have here in terms of varying paths? And the answer is that it's going to be quite a variety. You're going to hit some storylines that are pretty direct and move through, along a certain track, but the more common occurrence will be a fairly varied path of options set of options that you have in front of you based on, again, your class, your race, and a lot of the things that you've done up until this point, down to the level of, have you visited this certain place in this certain zone, and the way that can flag your character for a conversation that you have with someone on another continent that would change the shape of that conversation, or at least open up new paths to you that you would have been unable to open up beforehand. And like we've said before, the goal there is to try and make this not only a very deep system with a lot of replayability, but also to protect against things like spoilers, because there will be such a richness of flagging and the variety of different things that a player has done, that'll often be difficult to determine, exactly what steps were taken to get to this point and to that point. And that's why, we've decided to separate the perception system from the leveling mechanic, or we haven't put content behind the perception system as a kind of wall, because we don't want players to be impatient or feel like they're being held back because maybe they can't quite determine the steps that it's going to take to do this next thing or that next thing, even though our job will be to make sure that the clues that are presented are adequate enough. But maybe in an ideal situation, you're actually reaching out to other people around you and asking questions to other people actually playing the game at the same time to help make sense of some of these things, which is part of the social engagement that we're going for.
Okay, so this is super interesting. So we already knew that the perception system is super vast, right? Like, it depends on so many factors on whether you get that ping or not, etc. All kinds of checks on that. So we already knew that was super complex, but the conversations, we've heard a little bit before, but this is the first time we really got to see it in action really well, and that's that different branching conversations can lead to conversations being different in totally different continents, totally different places in the world, because you talk to this person and gain this knowledge later on. When that certain piece of knowledge is necessary, it would open up you to be able to say something a little different, or the person may react different to you, etc. So I mean, this is wild. I can just based off this information, I can pretty much assume that we could even see things such as, because you've acquired this item, you get this conversation piece, or because you're wearing that, or because you have this in your inventory. Though that is insane and very cool, and just that's the next level kind of thing, right? Like, things like this are why it's difficult to say and be 100% factual about that this game is an old school MMO. What it really is, and Bascom did a great video on this recently, but what it really is it's as if maybe starting at Vanguard and quitting and pretending like all the MMOs that came out after that didn't exist, and then just kind of picking back up where it left off and where MMOs were in that time frame, and then pushing forward, right? So around the 2004 mark, and then saying, well, let's take where we were in 2004 and let's, it's obviously it's 2020 right now, so let's take that and let's move forward from here, and kind of pretend like that gap that's missing between there had innovations in it, and we're gonna have to come up with all those ourselves, but still keep the spirit of an old school game. So, and taking inspiration from CRPGs and RPGs and all that kind of thing in order to create this world that is believable, right? That's the thing. That's what I'm getting out of this. They're making this world very believable. They're making conversations with the NPCs interesting, not something you do and drudge through because you want to learn the lore, or because you wonder if they have a quest, or that kind of thing, but actually making it interesting and making it something that you feel compelled to do, something that you want to do, something that piques your interest and just makes everything really cool. And I think that's a really great idea. I think this is definitely the evolution we needed with NPCs. There's evolutions everywhere you turn in Pantheon Rise of Fallen, and so I just want to point that out, because I think it's features like this that are going to make the game a whole lot better than other MMOs, but they're not going to get as much attention as things like the perception system in general, or the smooth gameplay, or the cool graphics, or the classes and how cool they're designed, and the abilities and all that kind of thing. But it's just as important to your enjoyment in Terminus, in this world, that they're adding these small little details, right? It's the attention to detail that matters. You can see the attention to detail in the graphics, you can see attention to detail in the conversations with NPCs, you can see it in the class designs, you can see it in the races, you can see it in the lore, you can see it everywhere you turn, and that's what makes Pantheon a special game, and something that's hard to categorize, right? Like, sure, people who played old school MMOs are going to love Pantheon, but the cool part part is that so will a lot of people who did not play the old school MMOs, who are new school MMO players or never played an MMO before, people coming from CRPGs and RPGs. I mean, at the rate they are going, if they're able to pull this off, and I obviously believe they will, they're creating history here. It's a really big deal. It's not just they're making another game or they're just creating another MMO with a couple of random quirks in it to make it different, right? This is a whole network of awesomeness. Like, it's insane. It's like every time that they tell us a little more or they show us something else, web of systems and structure just gets more solid and more like you just want to spend all your time there. And I think that's the real spirit of Pantheon, is they're doing so many things to make you never want to log off, right? Like, there's always going to be stuff to do. There's always, you're going to miss things. Replayability. He actually said that, for replayability. I haven't heard an MMO say that they're going for replayability. I don't feel like maybe ever. I mean, we all make alts. We all enjoy going back sometimes and starting over, at least most of us, a lot of us do. But I've never heard someone actually say that they're going for a good replayability on an MMO. I mean, it takes so long to actually get to max level, and to actually get your gear, and to feel comfortable, and to even get to a point where you might say, I want to replay it. And when he said that, it made me remember something that we don't talk a lot about because they're not sure if it's going to make it in the final game, or at least not at launch. And that is the progeny system. So if, and I'm just throwing this out there as a theory, so if they build the game in such a way that it has good replayability, it kind of entices you to replay, it does kind of make the progeny system make a lot more sense, which in case you don't know, progeny system is basically saying that players will be able to retire their high level characters so they can create their children as new characters, and these new characters are the progeny, and they'll have certain ability stats or something that makes them slightly, but yet noticeably better than a completely brand new character, but not to the point where it imbalances things. So they've come out openly and said they're not sure if that system's going to work or if it's going to be in the game at launch, but if they can develop the game in such a way that you kind of want to do that, you kind of feel compelled to go back and see some things, I could see them being able to work that in some kind of way. And once again, they said that they're not sure that's even going to be in the game. I just want to throw that out there because if you're talking replayability, of course, to me, the progeny system's going to stand out. And guys, I think that's plenty of information for my first video covering this, and there is so much more to cover, but I want to stop here. I like to make shorter videos, so enough for you to digest and not seem overwhelming. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video today. Leave me a comment down below. What do you think about the things we discussed today? Are you excited? How excited are you? And until next time, guys, God bless and happy gaming. Listen to what I say. I've been making videos all day. My friends all say I'm it's a video buffet. You can even hit replay. But please just subscribe. I can't even describe being part of my tribe. I'll even offer you a prize. But just please just subscribe and hit the bell notification too.